What is up, everybody? I am officially dropping the first episode of Sojo. I'm super excited, and this has been a lot of fun already with the recordings and the individuals that I've had a chance to speak with. But it's a lot of work, and if you guys can, we do have some merch out on the site. Go out, support us. I'm working on getting us some really cool hats and different things coming out sooner than later. So jump on, support. That helps this whole process grow so we can get a larger audience, reach more people, and hopefully we can do some really cool things and hit the next phase of what we're trying to do here at Sojo and you know, keep everybody on their journey and expound the journey that sports has put us on, keeps us on, and motivates us to keep doing. So, without further ado, jumping into this first episode is Tawnie Moore, a longtime friend of mine, and she was always going to be the first person that I was going to put on the podcast because of her impact personally on my own life and helping me in my own sports journey and the things that I've done, and just her encouragement. And you'll see that throughout this podcast, throughout this episode, that she is incredibly positive and she doesn't talk about it in depth, but she went through a lot of injuries, a lot of setbacks, especially in her college time, and finding sponsorships and different things as well, post collegiate career. And it was a lot, but she kept pushing, she kept fighting, and it's made her an incredible woman and someone that I'm incredibly grateful to call my friend. And I hope you guys enjoy her and her experience, her journey as much as I have. And so, without further ado, let's jump into the podcast. Tawnie Moore, everybody. All right, welcome everybody out to Sojo, here for another great episode for all you listeners. So here today I have Tawnie Moore. Tawnie Moore was a collegiate hurdler, Olympic trials participant, and she's also currently wearing the jersey of owner of her own marketing firm, Go the Distance Marketing. So she manages that while also juggling the responsibilities and duties of being an assistant collegiate track coach. So welcome, Tawnie Moore, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. So I've actually known Tawnie for quite a while. So this was whenever I got this whole podcast up in the air. I knew Tawnie was somebody that I wanted to bring onto the show because I think her journey is something super unique that I want everybody to be able to listen to and be a part of. But I also think Tawnie gives some really great direction and inspiration just for younger athletes and athletes that are even currently competing. She's been really good with her journey and just vocalizing leadership and working with other athletes. So I think this will be really exciting for all of you guys to kind of get a take on. So getting into this, Tawnie, hurdling, how did you fall into love with that? I mean, that's not really, I wouldn't say that's the typical go-to sport for many people. So how did you fall into love with that?
Well, it wasn't love at first sight, I'll tell you that. um, I actually started out my track career as a distance runner. So junior high comes along. I had played like basketball and volleyball and other sports like my whole life, softball, a lot of softball. But once I got into junior high, I kind of wanted to try something different. And I didn't necessarily want to be on like a school team per se, but I just wanted to try something new. So we had track tryouts in junior high school. And typically, I don't know if you don't know how junior high school works, junior high track, people just kind of show up and the coaches just put people wherever, where they feel like they can make some points at districts or people that they think would be good in an event. It's just kind of as an introductory sport, I guess. So I ran the 800 and the mile. And looking back now, I just laugh so hard because in those struggles, I was like, oh, this is so much fun. I love this place so much. I love all these people. I love this team. It's so great. Well, I did that for 2 years. And then so I got into ninth grade, so my freshman year, I guess, if you're going into high school. But I wanted to try something different because I was like, I don't know about this. it's fun, but I feel like I could do more. So I ended up asking my coach one day, hey, could I try the hurdles? Just because I seen a stack of them sitting over there in the corner, like, I want to do something different. I don't like running. I like being with my friends, but I hate running. So let me do something different. And I actually, the first time I ever went over a hurdle, I fell flat on my face. And normally people would be like, well, if you're sane, you'd be like, I don't think this is for me. I don't want to do this anymore. But I found the thrill of that and wanted to do something that was different other than running. So I was like, yeah, you know what? This is for me. So since then, I had just stuck with hurdles and sprinting, and all through high school was a hurdler, through college, professionally, and then, yeah, so that's how it started.
And so junior high, because I know maybe a lot of people have middle school. How old were you when you started that?
I think I was around 12, 11, 12, somewhere around there. Yeah, so pretty
Yeah.
young, pretty young. I think that's, yeah, about that time. So
So up to that point, before you were 12, was there any other sports that you did growing up, or was track really the first thing that you started going at?
I was really into softball. Basically since I was really, really little, playing t-ball all the way up through elementary school. I focused on softball just because I had a team in my town that had all my friends on there. So my friend's dad was the coach. We'd always have fun with it. It was really fun, but I didn't really love the aspect of like playing with a different team once I got into junior high school because I really enjoyed the girls that I played with, and most of them were going to stop playing anyways. So, yeah.
So was it, as at least growing up, you're playing a lot of softball. Was that really a hard decision for you to just kind of walk away from softball, or was that not so much a big deal for you at the time?
Mm, I think because I was so young, I wasn't as attached to it. It wasn't a big deal. When I went from being in elementary school into junior high school, it was such a big transition. Anyways, I think at that point I was kind of looking for something new. So I had done it for so long, years and years and years, and like I said, without having all the friends that I had on that team, I really wasn't interested in it, just because it was such a fun social aspect for me at that time. I mean, like, I took it serious because I am a competitive person, but it was a lot more about the social aspect, I think, when I was younger. So, and staying active. So,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And for anyone that doesn't know Tawnie, she is extremely competitive. So,
what? Not me.
but with that, I think you bring up an interesting question. So I like to ask people, who really brought them into their sport or who introduced it to them. But it sounds like for you, really, it was your friend group that introduced you to track, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had a few friends that well, really, it's kind of funny because I had a couple of friends who were on the softball teams that I played with when I was younger, who were going to try out for the track team. So I kind of just went with the flow with that. And I was like, oh, well, if they're going to do it, I want to try it too. And then from there, meeting all the people that I did in track, because junior high track is just anybody and everybody can come out and have fun, right? So,
Yeah.
um, seeing or getting to know new friends from all the different surrounding elementary schools was really fun. There was a lot of influence there, just people who had played other sports and now they're trying something different, so we can kind of relate to each other. So, yeah.
And for your softball playing younger, was it more rec softball or did you play on a competition team?
No, it was actually rec, so just with the
Okay.
city, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I actually, when I was really young, I used to be a dancer, and dancing is not for me. I'm just not a dancer girl. But I remember the day that I said that I wanted to quit ballet and play a sport. My both my parents were like, "All right, whatever." So they were kind of the ones that brought me into the sports with as far as that goes. But yeah,
So, did your parents have a background in sport that kind of drove you to participating in, dance, softball, and kind of getting into some of those things?
my dad played a lot of sports when he was younger and into high school. He played football, baseball, I think a little bit of basketball, but football was his main thing. But he didn't want to play at past high school or anything like that. I grew up in a sports family. We just love to watch sports. My mom, she played a little bit of tennis when she was younger, but nothing like too serious. But I did grow up watching a lot of football, so sports was kind of just a familiar territory for me. So
And from the sounds of, I feel like, and obviously I know you to a point, so I know your background a little, but for those that are listening, your background with your parents, did you feel like sports was something that was kind of pushed on you, like you needed to play it, or was it really just for fun, something get out there, just be active? Like, how did it feel for you as a kid?
yeah, I never once felt like I was forced into sports ever. I know my parents were always really great about if this is something that you don't want to do, then you don't have to do it. So there was never any pushing, never stress, never you have to stay in this because I want you to. There was never anything like that. And I think that that's an important factor to have as a parent because I mean, I don't have kids, but I know plenty of people who sports were forced onto them as children and it led them to kind of have a distaste for it in their later years. So,
So do you think that dynamic did change ever from, doing dance to softball to eventually all your track years? Do you feel like that dynamic ever changed with your parents? Like, could you just say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm going to walk away," and they wouldn't have done anything differently?
there was, yeah, it kind of stayed the same. I mean, they were always so great about if it's something that I want to do, great. If it's something that I decide I want to walk away from, that's great. I do think that I mean there were times in college where I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing the sport, but they sitting down talking with them, I was on a full athletic scholarship, so it was paying for my school. So I had to have a lot of conversations about okay, well, if this isn't something that you love, then you don't have to do it, but it is paying for your school, so you kind of have to just weigh the pros and cons there. And it was only a few times where it felt like that, but I mean, when you're a college athlete, things get to be a little bit heavy sometimes, and you're just struggling balancing everything. So it's kind of normal to feel like that, but there was never a point where I felt like I had to stay in it because of them.
That makes sense. And I'm glad you bring up some of those points of just kind of weighing those decisions, especially in college. And we're going to get into that with you. So let's transition here. Obviously, we know now track is your background. That's what you started in. So from junior high, there wasn't coaching there. I wouldn't say, to your point, it was just for fun. People are out there, you're doing it. So, what kept you going from junior high to high school outside? Because did all your friends continue doing track from junior high to high school? Did that whole group keep going, and so you just flowed with it, or how did that kind of go for you?
No, so I think it was that first year, so seventh grade year. I had a few people from the team, from my softball team, who wanted to run, and from there they kind of just broke off and did their own thing. So for me, I discovered a lot of love for self improvement, and regardless of being in the mile or being in the 800 or whatever I was doing at the time, seeing progress week after week with the meets was something that I discovered like, oh, this is fun because I'm the one that's in charge of that. I'm the one that's putting the effort in to make these times happen, to make this, all of this stuff happen. I wanted to qualify for districts at the time. I think it's qualification. That's how it works. But I wanted to be a part of districts so bad. So I worked really hard to be a part of that. And I loved that. Um, I discovered a way to keep going even though I didn't have a group of friends to keep me in there. And I think that gave me a lot of independence and a lot of self reliance at a young age, which I'm really grateful for.
And so I love that you say you discovered this. There's a lot of self-discovery there, especially in a sport like track, because you have the aspect of you're on a team, but it's also very individual on your
Mm-hmm.
results and what you're doing. So getting into high school, you now have a more competitive environment. You have coaches, you have a larger team, things like that. So tell us a little bit about your mindset now going into high school and how you viewed track and how you kind of progressed with it.
Yeah, so I kind of, that first year, so my sophomore year, I kind of just had the same mindset of let's just go and see what I can do with this. There was never once a thought, my first 2 years of high school, I never once thought, oh, I'm going to do this in college. Like that's the goal. I'm going no matter what, whatever that. I just kind of had this mindset of like, I know that I can keep improving my times because I keep putting in the work. So let's just see what I can do with it, right? So we did have an indoor track club, kind of. Um, I went to it a couple of times, but it wasn't really super serious and intense. So I started competing in a couple of indoor meets as a sophomore, and getting to see these college tracks was it was just like eye opening. I remember going to Utah State. I remember going to BYU. I remember Weber State and seeing all of these really beautiful facilities. Like, oh, this is actually a sport. Like, this is a real thing, not just a high school, junior high kind of for fun kind of thing. And I remember thinking, maybe college is something that I might be interested in. If it's something that's going to provide me another outlet to continue to get better and to continue to find that, self discovery type stuff, maybe that's something I should consider. And so I, the first couple of years, I kind of just not, well, I shouldn't say that. The first year, I was really just kind of going with the flow and just whatever happens, happens. And I remember specifically when we got to one of the bigger high school track meets my sophomore year, there was a lot of competition because it was a region meet. And going against these different schools kind of developed that sense of competition, kind of seeing the same people, competing with the same people over and over, and getting beat by a couple people where I was like, I don't like losing. So I now have this self-discovery of I like competition, but I also do not like to lose. So that was fuel for it, right? And I remember getting beat by a couple of individuals multiple times over that year. And we got to that competitive meet, and finally I was neck and neck with them. And I remember thinking in that race, like, if I beat them, does that mean that I'm actually a good hurdler? So I remember the race. She actually ended up beating me, the one I was hoping to beat. But that next year, going into my junior season, I spent that whole year just getting better and working hard and doing things in the weight room and all that kind of stuff because I just wanted to beat this person because I had to prove to myself that I could do it. And so it did end up happening. So we kind of went back and forth throughout the season, but it was really fun to kind of develop that self, I guess I don't know what the right word is, but that routine and kind of establishing determination on your own because you want it, not because someone else wants you to do it or somebody else said you should do it, that kind of thing. And that's really what guided me through high school. It was all on me, and I loved that it was all on me. So I didn't like to rely on other people. So,
Now that makes sense, and I love the concept that you expressed there that it really was a lot of just you fell in love with the aspect of making yourself better each day and
mm-hmm.
trying to beat somebody. And I think it's a cool background too for you, especially where growing up, all the stuff you were doing was really just for fun and it wasn't this big push and you really didn't have this dream or goal set on, hey, I'm going to be an Olympic runner. It wasn't this intense training at a young age or anything like that. It wasn't until you were older that you found track and then you really started to put effort into it and it started to slowly evolve, and then kind of just going with the flow of going to events, going to meets, getting to travel and see some of these things. You're like, wow, this is kind of an opportunity that I could actually step into.
Mm-hmm.
So to ask you, up until that point, was college just an academic thing that you were looking at, or what was your view towards college?
I I didn't really see myself going to college. It's not that I hated school. I don't like to sit still for a very long time. So school was kind of a struggle in the first place, just because I like to stay busy and I like doing multiple things at once. But it was hard to sit in different classes for 2 hours or whatever it was. So there was never a time where I was like, "Yep, I'm going to college. I'm going to get this degree." I mean, of course, my parents had always said like it's good to go to school so you can get a degree, so you can have something to kind of fall back on. And I was always like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like I get it, but there was never a desire to want to go to college, so that was never like a driving factor either. So,
And were your parents, were they college grads?
no, neither of them were. So,
Okay, okay.
hmm
So it really was track that got you to college to go out and end up getting a degree.
yeah, no, it really was. I had one of my coaches reached out to, well, at the time he wasn't my coach. So recruiting for me started my junior year.
Mhm.
Um, and so I went to Weber State University, and the previous coach, the one that was there at the time when he was recruiting me, he reached out to me that summer and had said, "Hey, we've seen your progress at the state meet. We've been watching you all season. Like, we think that you would be, a really great asset to our team. We'll be in touch soon." And I remember specifically thinking, like, why are they looking at me? Like, there's nobody else out here in the world that's like, I could care less about going to school. Why are you looking at me? So I'm like, I can count a list of people that would love to go to college. And I kind of just was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, didn't
Yeah.
think anything about it, you know what I mean? But since then, it was just like, okay, I had to think about my next year, which is my senior year. Had to really start considering what was going to happen after college or after high school. And the thought of just going straight into working and being an adult was like, I could keep running and have fun for another 4 to 6 years and then be an adult, or start being an adult now. Let me think about it. I think I'll pick the earlier one. So,
And I do, because, and I want to bring this up. For you, your recruitment, started as a junior in high school. But tell me if I'm wrong, but you never competed in a meet that wasn't like a high school sanctioned meet in high school. Is that correct?
yeah.
You didn't travel around to any, special invitations or multi-state meets or, like Junior Olympics. You didn't do anything like that,
Mm-mm.
correct?
Nope.
And then as
Everything
far
that
as
was kind of in state, that's what I typically did.
and then as far as your recruitment went, you weren't on any like recruiting platforms or doing anything like that. You were just out there simply running.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there was nothing. I didn't spend any time with any of the recruiting stuff. Just, again, I thought, why are they looking at me? Which is such a silly mindset. But yeah, I just enjoyed it so much. I was like, oh, let's just see what happens, kind of thing. It wasn't like I was actively looking for a college to go to.
Yeah. And I would say the mindset has obviously changed for you going and being a collegiate athlete and everything that you do now. I mean, being an owner of a company, it went from like why me to why not me, correct?
Yes, very much so.
So, and I think that's really cool. And I love pointing out your recruitment journey because I think a lot of young athletes think that you have to go out and you have to go to all these different events and clubs and different things to build your recruitment to get noticed. But in the long run, if you're a good athlete and you're doing the right things, like you will always be noticed.
Yeah.
So I
And I
think
think,
that's and
go ahead. Sorry.
go for no, you're good. Go for it.
I was just going to say, I think that going to those types of meets and doing the outside active showcasing of yourself definitely doesn't hurt, especially nowadays where social media is such a big factor in everybody's lives. It definitely doesn't hurt to have that kind of stuff, but I do agree with what you said that regardless of if you're on social media or not, or if you're actively promoting yourself, you don't need that tool because your times and your athletic performance will speak for itself and you will end up in the place that you're meant to be.
And I think kind of segueing into a different thought, but I love hearing your upbringing and kind of your story on sports because if I were to ask you, do you feel like you were a kid growing up? I think you would say, yeah. You feel like
Mm-hmm.
you had a childhood, you got to do things. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not always the case with everybody. They feel like they were committed to, 40 hours in the gym, whatnot. And so I like the aspect too that even in high school, I agree. You can go travel to all those different events and maybe you would have got an offer from, you could say, a bigger, more prestigious university, whatnot. But it didn't matter. Like you still ended up being a collegiate athlete and having a great career and doing all the things that you got to do while also enjoying your weekends and spending
Mm-hmm.
time with your friends and family instead of traveling across the country, which has its pros and its cons.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so Weber State, they recruited you amongst other schools. I mean, what was it? What was it about Weber State that got Tawnie Moore to pick them over everybody else?
Well, there was nothing about the college aspect that I wanted to like get out of Utah. There's a stigma about being a Utah athlete that you have to get out of here to be noticed and to have good opportunities and all that kind of stuff. I didn't believe that. I thought that no matter where you are, you just make the best of it, make the most of wherever you end up being. Then you're going to be happy with what you do. And I know that that's not the case for everybody, but in my experience and my yeah, my experience with being a college athlete, if I would have chose one side or the other somewhere else, another university to go to, I would have missed out on so many community events, so many opportunities to network within my community. I feel like I have a big pull within our group of athletes here in Utah. I do feel like I have reach from northern to southern Utah, whether that's high school, whether that's junior high school, whether that's college, whatever it is. If I would have went out of state, then I would not have that. I would not have what I have today. And I think it's important that we really focus. We need to put more focus on Utah athletes in general. I know that like Utah high school football is on the rise, right? Like there's so many more opportunities for high school football players now. And I think that we need to do the same thing with track. Utah is a state that is often overlooked just because it's not Texas, it's not California, it's not Florida, where these big meets or these big schools are. And that's fine, but like a lot of coaches and a lot of programs overlook athletes and people here in general just because of the stigma behind Utah, whatever that is. And I think it's, for me, staying here and going to Weber was kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say always the dream, but like the second that that coach had emailed me, I really liked that he took the time to personally write to me instead of just kind of sending a random generic email or generic pamphlet in the mail or whatever it was, because there was a lot of colleges that were trying to recruit me at the time and they just sent like a blanket brochure kind of thing, and like, okay, that's cool, thanks for mailing it to me, whatever. But the fact that they took the time to personally reach out to me and make me feel like, important because they were watching me, they were watching the progress, they want me there, all that kind of stuff. That was really the trigger for me. Other coaches were great too, and I'm not trying to down talk on anybody's coaching or recruiting abilities, but I think that the way that you approach your opportunities, whatever that is, you have to settle with what decision you make, right? So if you go out of state and you're good with that, then you have to be good with that and make the most of that moment. If you are in state, you have to also do the same thing and take every opportunity that you can to make the best of it too. Don't sit here going to whichever place that gives you the offer and then you sit and say, oh, well, what if? Oh, what if I could do this? Or what if I would have had that? You know what I mean? Because if you get caught up in the what ifs, then you can't sit here and enjoy the moment and you can't make the most of it too. So,
Makes complete sense. So
yeah.
picking that, going to Weber State, you get up there, local to the area. What was it like going from that transition from high school track to collegiate track?
Oh my gosh. I remember my first day of practice, I cried like a baby because it was hard. It was so
Yeah,
hard. Like I kind of just went in with this mindset of it was all kind of the same as far as workouts go. Like you do a couple runs here, a couple practices over hurdles or whatever it is, and then you're done for the day. I had no idea the world that I was stepping into was so involved, so enveloped, and it was day in and day out too. It wasn't just a 2 hours after high school or after school kind of thing. It's like a 4 hour day in day out ordeal where you're in the weight room, you're in the on the track, you're doing nutrition, you're doing school too. There's so many components that come into play that you kind of get shell shocked a little bit. And I remember that first year thinking, what am I doing? What am I getting myself into? Do I really love this as much as I think I do? You know what I mean? Um, but just like with anything, it's a shock at first, but you have to just kind of go with the flow, let some things be uncomfortable because that's how you grow, right? You can't expect to become a world-class athlete if you just do high school track workouts all the time. You know what I'm saying? So, just have to be open to change and willing to adapt.
as far as that change, to your point, in high school, you're running, especially how your career was, you're just running after school and that was it. Did it really feel like college track became a job that you were doing day in and day out?
There were times it did feel like a job, and I think those were the moments where everything just kind of felt overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where school was just a little bit more heavy. Maybe it was around like finals times, where I had a lot of assignments going on. Maybe practices weren't going as well as I thought, that kind of thing. So when you get caught up in those moments where maybe things aren't going the way that you thought they were going to go, that's where it kind of felt like a job, just because you're not enjoying the highs at the moment. You're kind of stuck in the lows. But I think with those lows, you kind of have to feel those to experience the high, the thrill of the high. You know what I mean? And it doesn't last forever. Like finals weekends, big assignments end, big projects end. It's not the end of the world, that kind of thing. But I would say yes, it does overall in general kind of feel like a job, just because you're there every day and you have a job to do. You have to be better, you have to improve, you have to get faster, all those kinds of things. So you have to put in the work to do better, just like with any job.
Throughout the journey with track, you talk about junior high, it was just something kind of almost on a whim, but it was fun. In high school, it was fun. You found this competitive. Did you keep that fun aspect with you in college as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there was more, I can't say one was more fun than the other, just because you're in different stages of your life, right? When you're high school, that's your friends that you grew up with, or friends that you've been around for so long. And then when you get to college, you meet new people that you've never met before. They're from different states, they're sometimes from different countries. So you get those experiences and those input from people that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe you do agree with and you don't know that you agree with them. There's a lot of adversity that comes with college, but I think that that's what makes it fun, because you kind of learn how to adapt to situations that you're uncomfortable with, or not, maybe not know how to navigate. And again, just that growth component. And with track, especially, there's so much room for uncomfortable situations, just because you're just not used to that. It's not familiar. So when you get to that point, the fun of it just becomes a different type of fun. Kind of learning to navigate things, growing up, getting a little bit more mature, that kind of stuff.
And with that fun, because I would hope whatever you're doing you enjoy, obviously, and then when you don't, maybe that's when you put it and hang it up. How was it to balance the academic side of things with collegiate track and everything else? To your point, you talk about the highs and lows, the struggles. Like, how was it to have finals week and then maybe also be going through an injury?
Yeah, so it kind of just depends on the situation. For me personally, I looked at the academic side of things to be my escape from track. Not that I didn't enjoy it. It was just
Yeah.
when you get caught up in being there for 4 hours a day, it's kind of like, okay, I need something else. I need to move on to something else. So I tried to look at those because I'm a really task oriented person. So I would try to set up my days where it was like, okay, 8 o'clock to 12 is my class time, and then my practice time is from 1 to 4. Then my nighttime, I do all my, studying stuff. But I think you just have to, again, kind of be willing to kind of ebb and flow with how things go. So, for example, like finals week during the during winter. So we usually would have a track meet coming up that first or second week of December, and we'd be right in the middle of all the finals too. So it was always a really stressful time. So I tried to do my best ahead of time to set myself up for success, instead of pushing everything off and trying to just cram it all in the last minute. I would try to spread things out and just make things a little bit more chaotic for me. Just because the track obviously was what I loved the most, so I wanted to put full effort into that. So anything that I could do to make the academic side of things easier, so I could focus all my time on the track, that's what I did. So it wasn't like putting things off last minute or anything like that. I tried to just space it all out so that it was not overwhelming. I mean, and there's still times where projects or assignments or whatever it was would get to be like, oh, okay, I need to back off a little bit, but that's what you have like resources for. There's tutoring options, there's study hall hours, there's so many things that you can do to help minimize that load, which is what I loved about Weber too. There were so many things that I could utilize up there, where if there was ever any time where I felt like it was too much or I was overloaded, I could go and kind of get some help with the academic side or the athletic side, and everything would be fine.
I think you say something really interesting that I don't think I've heard many people say, but academics actually was kind of like an escape for you, which I think
Hmm.
is a interesting mindset because most athletes that I've been around and heard, academics was more of something that was in the way of doing more sport or going to practice or training or different things like that. So I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think the way that I tried to look at it, as I was being more and more involved with track, I didn't want that to be the only thing that I was focused on. Like I loved it
Mhm.
and wanted to be a part of it and, had the goals and all that stuff. But in my mind, if I had put so much like focus on the sport just to have something, maybe let's say I didn't run well at a meet or I didn't run well at this big competition or whatever the case may be, I didn't want all of my focus to be on that specific day. And I had when I had other things that I could also be focusing on to kind of just keep a level head about everything, because as athletes we do put so much emotion into our performances. And that was kind of a way for me to kind of keep it even, keep it balanced. Because, I mean, again, like the highs are high, the lows are low. And if you can find a way to kind of streamline everything and keep everything in the middle, then you won't experience, heartbreak or whatever the case may be. So just trying to keep a level head is what I mean by that.
Oh, I think that's great, just advice for individuals out there in sports. So right now, you're owner of your own marketing business. So explain to me, how do we go from collegiate hurdler to owning your own business, doing marketing? Like, what's the chunk there that we're missing?
Whew, strap in because there's a lot. um, Okay, so let's see. So 2018 was when I was supposed to graduate and just be done with college. Well, that spring, I ended up having an injury in my foot, and it allowed me to, well, I wasn't able to walk, so I couldn't do anything about that. um, so lucky for me, I had 1 year of eligibility left, or 1 year of outdoor eligibility. So I was actually done with my undergraduate degree that spring. So I had to choose literally that week if I wanted to go into, double majoring or if I wanted to get a professional degree, whatever that case may be. So I just decided to take the professional communications degree, master's degree up there, since it was a 2 year program, but since I had 1 year of eligibility left, I was crazy and shoved it all into 1 year. So 2019 was a really really great year, but it was rough. There was a lot of doing a whole professional program in 1 year. It was a lot, but with that being said, so that kind of pushed me into a little bit of marketing because I had internships with a couple of different companies. I used to work for a running company um, that was local to me, and I did a lot of social media for them, email marketing, just all of the print advertising, everything that has to do with advertising for a company. That's what I was in charge of. And so that kind of led me into working with a couple other companies who were in that same block of businesses. So I worked with, I think, 4 or 5 different companies in that span of time. So just because I didn't have enough on my plate with a master's degree and being a track athlete, I wanted to add more to it, right? So I had all of these internships type stuff and things that I had to shove in all in one semester. But I really enjoyed the aspect of just helping small businesses. I think that there was a lot of opportunity in Ogden, the Ogden area, where companies just aren't getting the reach that they want. So, and primarily it was just because they didn't have someone to take on that role, right? Most of them were small business owners who have been doing it for years. They didn't have time to bring in somebody else to train them and teach them or all that kind of stuff. So, I finished my degree in 2019 um, and competed through that summer. Yeah, I competed in a couple of races that summer, was still doing the internships, and then I kind of fell into a job with that running company. So I just kind of took that more, it was full time ish, but I was there, salesperson and marketing at the same time. So that was kind of my post college job, just going into that. I was still racing, still competing, still training and all that kind of stuff. And then the big 2020 hit, and we are all aware of what happened in 2020, so we don't need to elaborate on that. But that year was just spent kind of just discovering, okay, literally my whole entire life, so to say, was just taken away from me. Because I mean, I can't go compete. I can't go do this. I can't even go to a track. I can't do anything with the thing that I have been doing for 6 years. So that kind
Yeah.
of going back to what I said earlier, putting all of my attention on one thing can really, it was going to be damaging in college. So I try to carry those same principles into the post collegiate years. Um, and especially with this year, it kind of just, it was, even if I didn't want it to, it showed me, it slapped me in the face, like, you can't put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. Um, so I spent that year just training a little bit because my goal at that point was to compete at the Olympic trials, which was supposed to be in 2020. Of course, it got postponed to the following year. So I'm like, well, if I just do what I can, stay active, stay in shape, do whatever I can, go to whatever facilities I can make it to, we'll be fine. It'll be good. I'll just work this job and then we'll just kind of see how things go moving from there. So I trained professionally with a company. They were my sponsor for a year and a half, I think. So that took me from the summer of 2020 all the way into 21. Yeah, summer 21 when the Olympic trials happened. So unfortunately, I didn't get to race that many times just because of all the restrictions with the COVID-19 virus and all that kind of stuff. So I was really kind of focusing still training, but still working, getting some experience with this job and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So then the trials happened in June of 21, and I loved every single minute of that whole thing. Was really happy with how everything went through, and I mean, regardless of the situation, I still made the most of it. And I mean, what can you do at that point? There's things that are out of your control, and if you sit and just dwell on it, then you can't enjoy the whole of it, right? So
Absolutely.
fall 21 happened, and I was still working that job, and they were actually the company I was with, they were kind of looking to move in a different direction. So it was that time where I started looking for other opportunities, right? So I think September of 21 is when I started at this other company that they sell nail supplies, so gel polish, glitter, all that kind of stuff. And so I went from completely different market in shoes and running and all that kind of stuff to something I had no idea about. Like, I loved getting my nails done and all that kind of stuff, but there was nothing about this world that I knew and understood. So it was really unfamiliar and really uncomfortable for me, but I liked it because it was a learning opportunity, helped me grow in a lot of ways. So I did that for 6 months. And then in the spring of 22, I got a call from one of the coaches at Weber, and they were looking for somebody to come on and be an assistant, just because they needed help with, this 1, 2, 3 things, whatever.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I was kind of in a place where I wasn't having a healthy outlook about how my track career was going and what had happened to me in the last year and a half, like 2 years at that point, and how unfair it was and how I got stripped of what I deserve, and just all this stuff that you go through, and in your mindset everything is just, the world's ending, that kind of stuff. And I was just going through a lot of things at that time, kind of torn between staying in the sport, getting away from the sport because it was enveloping my life and I didn't know how to
Yeah.
escape that kind of thing. um and there was a point where I actually even went through like all my social media stuff and unfollowed everything track related because I was bitter. I don't know. I had a lot of things I had to go through with that whole experience. So when I got that call, this was right around that same time when I was like, I don't want anything to do with it anymore. Just cold turkey, I'm done. And getting that call, I was like, huh. And I'm going to listen to signs from above 100%. But I was like, okay, so you want me out of this, but you want me in this. Like, what am I supposed to do? Kind of thing. And so I decided to take the job. And so it was just a part time assisting job. And it was really fun. I learned a lot in that first little bit. I was only there for 3 months before the season ended, but it was a lot of fun. And I thought, okay, so this is a whole new side of track that I enjoy. But I also like doing my marketing stuff. So I'm kind of thinking maybe if I start like a business doing marketing on the side, and then I can be an assistant coach and I can still have the best of both worlds but not be so focused on one or the other. So spring of 22, I started Go the Distance Marketing, which allowed me to work with companies that were small businesses who were kind of just trying to step up into that next level, optimizing their marketing strategies, whether that's email, social media, whatever that looks like for them. And then just looking to work with people that might not, again, have the time to do those things, but are willing to hire someone to take care of those little day-to-day tasks that people don't care for. You know what I mean? So that's how the business started, because I still needed something that was going to keep me outside of track and let me have some focus elsewhere. But it's worked out great so far. This is year two. Yeah, this was going into year three doing this business, and I love it. I really do enjoy it. It's a lot. It's showed me a lot, taught me a lot, and it's been a lot of fun working with different business owners. So that's the extended version of that story.
No, I appreciate all the details. And so now we're here to where you currently are. Gotta ask, so is track still something that you're training for, running for, or are you just full time into coaching now?
So this last year, I kind of had to do some evaluation of what's important to me. There was an opportunity with we had some coaching changes at Weber, and I wasn't sure how involved I was going to be at this point because we had a new coach coming in, and I didn't realize at the time, but I was super super involved, which has been so great, so fun. I It's turned more into like a full-time position, which I didn't think that I would want it to be like that, but I do after seeing the experiences and getting to work with the athletes on a different level, and having ownership of a group is a big deal, and it's been really fun. So for me, the coaching side is where I want to focus on. So I'm kind of trying to transition out of the marketing now and more so into the coaching. And with that being said, if I have more focus on or more time being up there as a full-time assistant, then I would be able to train more and have more focus on that. But for me, track now, it's more about just enjoying it and loving it more so than have to hit these times and have to do good and I have to compete at these meets and I have to do this, this, and this. Because at that point now it would be a job. And I don't want it to be a job. I want it to be fun. I want to love it. I want to enjoy it. There's been a couple of years since then that I have just competed in a couple of meets here and there, and it's been so fun. It's been so much fun just having a relaxed mindset about it, not really caring about, oh, I need to run this, or I need to be faster, I need to work on this, whatever it is. Because for me, the super highly competitive aspect of it happened in college. And now that I have kind of seen things for what they are and um, kind of made it, well, I guess have a better understanding about what it means to me, I have a healthier outlook about it too. So in the case of like training and all that kind of stuff, there's nothing serious that I'm like pushing toward. Although I would love to kind of fall into that kind of stuff again, I think it's better for me to just sit back and kind of be more lax about it, I guess. That kind of thing. And things change too. Like I say this right now, I have this conversation right now, and then a year from now I could be like, you know what, I'm so into it, let's go. You know what I mean? It kind of just, it's up and
Yeah.
down, but I think having a healthier perspective about it has helped give me a lot of clarity instead of stress about it. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. And I want to transition to something because you brought it up, talking about there were those times where for example, you cleared all your social media feed of track and field. You were done with it. You were upset. You were bitter, to your point. Throughout your career, I mean, this sounds great. Obviously, you go from junior high kid to high school to being a full-time athlete in college, running track, doing something you love. It's now giving you an opportunity to coach. But what were some of those harder moments that you went through? Did you have some serious, you talked to one about one injury you had with your foot, but how was it on your body? What were some of those injuries that you went through, some of those hard moments? Like, tell us about some of those things.
Yeah. So I'll kind of reverse and go back to college. So My 2018 injury was a quarter fracture in my calcaneus bone, and a quarter inch doesn't sound like it would be a problem, but it was. So I couldn't walk, like I said, so I had to be in a boot for 6 months, I believe. So I couldn't start walking or training on it again until that fall, so November. So as you can imagine, being off of one leg, it's weak. It doesn't have muscular, definition as the same as the other one, and you're kind of behind in that sense. So I it was hard to get back into it just because of the physical implications that came with it. My Achilles tendon had a hard time recovering. My ankle had a hard time just because I was in a stiff boot for so long. I lost a little bit of mobility. My left leg was way weaker than my right leg, which was really hard because that was my lead leg over the hurdle. So that one had to be my strong leg again. So I had to really buckle down and focus in on getting strong again and strengthening up that leg and doing things that I needed to do to get back to where I was. But the thrill of that is what kept me going with it, even though there was moments where it was like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. And especially for me, because my 2017 season, yeah, okay, so 2017, I won indoor and outdoor. And then my 2018 indoor season, I won indoor. So that's 3 championships back to back to back where I've won. So then going out of my 2018 outdoor season where I was out, going into 2019 outdoor season, I had to have the comeback of the year. I had to, just because I didn't have indoor eligibility. So I literally had a full, what was it, like a year at that point to get back to where I was. And so that was kind of the driving motivation for it. Even though there were days where I still remember there were days where I would, go home and bawl because it was so much. It felt like I was so behind. And I spent 6 years of my life working so hard, and like I should be a senior, I should be graduated, I should have had this, and this, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, you have to just kind of, again, find the silver linings and things. It was an opportunity for my body to rest, which I needed a lot. My hamstrings were so tired. My quads were so tired. I wasn't feeling, fueled with training at that point before the injury happened. So it did give me a lot of time to just rest and recover and get my body back to where it needed to be. Although I was behind on the physical training, but it was hard. It was like, you, why me again? Like, why is it me? Why should I have to go through this? You know what I mean? We go through those ifs, ands, and buts and all that kind of stuff. Like, what did I do? That kind of thing. But you just have to, again, you have to just find those moments of, I don't know, moments of definition that make you who you are. Because I could have laid down and just let that thing take over and then have the worst season ever. But I wanted to take control of it and kind of, again, show people too that you don't have to not be good when you come back from an injury, because that was kind of the mindset around some people, with some of the experiences that we had on some specific teammates, where they would come back from their injury and they wouldn't be as good as they were again. Now, they probably weren't as committed and dedicated to getting back to that point, so that's probably why they didn't perform that well. But I was like, I'm not going to let that happen. That's not who I am. I'm going to compete. I'm going to train to the best of my ability, and I'm going to make this happen. And lucky for me, 2019 was the best year collegiately ever. I had come back from, what was it? Yeah, 6 months of being in a boot to that spring. Well, no, actually, in that winter, I went to the USA Track and Field Indoor Championships. I won my conference championship. I broke the Big Sky record. I I went to regionals and the national meet. I became an All-American athlete. Like, I I'm so grateful for that opportunity to break that bone in my foot, because I would not have been able to compete at that level by taking a step back and, again, kind of seeing things for what they really were. So that was my college injury experience, which I I don't wish that on anybody, but it does give you a lot of perspective.
Isn't it, to your point, being injured, what does it feel like to be on the team when you're injured, everybody else is competing? I mean, I've talked to other athletes, I have my own experiences, which how I think about situations, but I mean, people say that it can be a really dark place. You can really go and have some difficult thoughts. It's a lot of mental
Hmm.
aspects that come into play. Like, how can you just tell us a little bit more about what is it like there? How did you get out of it? To your point, you had other teammates that got injured and they
Hmm.
didn't come back as strong. You didn't feel like the commitment was there. How did you kind of work through that?
Yeah. I I mean, everybody here knows those times where you get into those dark spots and those dark places and it seems like you can't get out of it. Um it's hard watching your teammates sit there and keep doing, daily progress and they get better and you're just over here stuck on the bike or stuck on the elliptical machine or whatever the case may be, you're in the pool. Um but I just think of it, I try to, I mean, again, when you're in those moments, it's really hard to have clarity and hard to see straight, right? But I think you have to just keep in mind that you can't control what other people are doing, and you can only control the effort that you put in. So, regardless of being on the track or being in the pool or being on the mountain, whatever it is, you have to give your best in everything that you do. Because if you sit there while you're in recovery mode in the pool or on the bike watching people, if you're going to sit there and sulk about it, then you're not going to get better. So, you're already putting yourself one day behind, if that makes sense. Um, and now I'm not here to say that it's, oh, you just turned your mindset around and it's easy and you get out of it and you're fine. Because that's not the
Yeah.
case. Like, it's hard. It's really hard to go through injuries. It's hard to come back from injuries. But the biggest thing that you can do is, I mean, you can control everything else outside of what happened to you, right? Like, you can take control of your core training, you can do stretching, you can do things differently, your hydration, your nutrition. So you got to look at those things as wins and not take the big thing that happened that puts you out as the big loss that's just going to set you back forever. You know what I mean? So again, it all just comes down to having a good perspective about your sport, and that no matter if you have an injury or if you're, you could be injured at the bottom or you could be high on the top winning a conference championship. The world does not end here or up there. There's so much more beyond that you have to realize that, oh, this is just a momentary thing and it's going to pass and it's going to be fine. So,
And everybody listening, hopefully you can tell Tawnie has an extremely positive mindset. As long as I've known her, she has always been very positive, and I think that's played well into her strengths and why she's been able to work through so many different challenges and injuries that she's kind of expressed here. But with that, do you think, or was there ever something at Weber State as far as the coaches or staff or other athletes? Was there some tools or people that helped you kind of push through roadblocks, through barriers, or do you wish
oh
there
yeah,
was more?
I there's so many. I mean, there's a list of people that I would love to sit there and personally thank, right? Like, I mean, from the athletic trainers to the assistant trainers to the coaches to the athletes to the teammates, just there's so many people and so many um, programs up there that helped me get through all of that. Like, it was definitely not on my own. Like, from people spending, there was a particular situation where I used to hate taking ice baths, just as a funny example. And one of
Big
my
fan. Not, not.
no, 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 nobody's a fan of that. Don't kid
No.
yourself. um but one of my athletic trainers, she basically forced me into the tub. Not forced me, but she was like, you need to get in this and you need to see just how much of a difference it's going to make for your body. I promise you start doing this on a regular basis, it's going to help you. And I mean, I'm a little bit of a spitfire, so I would always be like, I'm going to listen to what you say, like just stuff like that. And because I know better, right? Yeah. And okay, I said, okay, I'll just give this a shot. I just mostly didn't want to get into a tub of freezing cold water. But the funny thing is, I got into that tub and it just became a regular thing where I would just force myself again to be uncomfortable and to learn to be okay with being uncomfortable. And I'm not accrediting the ice baths themselves that made the difference, but it did contribute to the overall success of that year. So I'm like, okay, maybe she was right. So yeah,
Maybe there's something there.
maybe these trainers know what they're doing. Okay, okay. Yeah, no, there's a list of athletic like ATs and assistants and so many different people that have helped along the way that and that's what I think you got to learn too. You have to lean on those people and trust those people too. They're here to help you. Be open to that. Be willing to take advice. Be willing to learn and change and grow. Um, just because you've been so at that point for that story, I was in college for 3 years. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I know what I'm doing. I can do better without that. Whatever. Like no matter how much experience you have, you're always going to be able to learn something new and try something new. So you have to be willing to adapt to that.
That makes complete sense. And I love that you bring up the ATs and a long list of people because here in Sojo, our big focus is building a community of athletes, fans, coaches, everybody to participate, learn together, share stories. And you talk about just staying in Utah, for example, you've been able to connect with so many people up and down the entire state. You talk about the ATs that helped you throughout your collegiate career, the different people like that you've been able to reach and talk with. And as far as that community has gone, is that community still something that you keep in contact with daily? I mean, are you reaching out to them, discussing things, seeing how they're going? Like, how does that relationship with that community still work for you today?
Yeah, I mean, luckily in our sport, track and field is it's such a networking community in general. But I mean, just a few weeks ago, actually, I think, yeah, it was a couple months ago, actually. I just seen one of the ATs that helped me my freshman year. And he stopped me and he was, saying, hey, how's it going? And I, met with his wife and seen his kids, all that kind of stuff. And it's always just great to see those people and just see them doing well in life. And like, we're friends on Facebook. I'm friends with a lot of people on Instagram. When it comes to all that kind of stuff. And I mean, anywhere that I go when it's a track related event, like there's always somebody that I have come in contact with directly or indirectly through somebody else. And it's really great to have that, networking opportunity just because I could send people to them. Like if I know somebody in St. George, like, oh, she's the best AT down there, I could send you there, that kind of thing. Or, oh, I know somebody up in Logan or whatever the case may be. Having all those different outlets and networking opportunities, I can continue to help them grow as people or help people that I know get the tools that they need, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm definitely still in touch with a lot of people that I've been in contact with over the years.
Very cool. And I want to transition to this last little segment for you and just kind of rapid fire shoot some questions at you and see if we can learn some things here, get some good advice. So, pulling up this awesome list that we've developed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's throw this out at you, Tawnie, and kind of expound on this if you can for us. But have you seen, I guess in your instance, this will be more towards track, but have you seen track be able to uplift those around you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of things to be said when you are working in competing in a individual team sport. We'll just call it that. Even though you are in a sport where it's all you, you put the effort in, you have the outcome that you put in, that kind of thing. When you're working with people constantly on a day-to-day basis where you see the struggles, you see the highs, you see the lows, I like to call it in the trenches with them. There's a lot to be said about like when you are going through something, like if it's something outside of track or if it's something with school or if it's something on the track, you have people that understand you and get it and who are there to help you and talk you through things and work through things and be those resources for you. And not only that, I think that the online um, track and field community is massive. There's so many
Yeah.
people out there. Like you could go and make a post, and I bet you could get at least 50,000 people who agree to the same thing or who can relate to something. So I think that our sport, because it's male and female, both genders, there's a lot to be said about all of us sharing our experiences and kind of just growing through things and getting through the hard stuff together and also experiencing the highs together so that you can kind of relate to people, share people's stuff, all that kind of stuff. It's just it's a great community. And I feel like not all sports have that. So,
I think that's a great thing to point out because to your point, once you're finished with track in college, I mean, unless you're running the Olympics and there's, the Diamond League and whatnot, there's not a big avenue. It's not a big professional league. It's
Hmm.
not. And so to see that there is that community that still reaches out and talks, I think is really cool. And I know you hate distance running, but I mean, you see people running for the rest of their lives. It's
Yeah.
definitely a hobby, an aspect that people can stay
Hmm.
intertwined with.
For sure.
Now, being a coach, experiencing that, seeing what it's like, what roles do coaches and mentors play in sports in the journey, or what roles did they play in your sports journey even?
Oh man, it's a massive role and it goes way beyond the title that you get put on the website. Um, I personally believe that coaching, you have to be a friend and you have to be a coach at the same time. I think that if you just come in and you yell at people and tell people it's done because I said so, that kind of thing, that mindset, you're not going to reach people as much as you would as someone who is there to explain things and work things through and talk things through and ask for their opinion and all of that kind of stuff. I think that, I mean, there's the tough love part of it for sure. And you have to be tough and you have to, but it should always be like you as a coach, you should always be giving athletes that autonomy to make the decisions on their own so that they will become well developed athletes and people without you having to tell them. Does that make sense? So, like for example, the coaches that I have come across over the years, the ones that were most successful were the ones who really gave that um what's the word? They really showed you that they cared for you as an athlete and as a person. They go beyond what happens on the track, beyond what happens in the weight room. It's about checking in on those things that are happening outside of the track that people don't know about. It's about checking in on them when something isn't right, when you notice that they're not competing or training as well as they normally are. Maybe there's something that's happening, and if you take the time to reach out to them and make sure that they feel heard and welcome, I feel like there's a lot more success as far as building your coaching career and building a successful program and all that kind of stuff than it would be if you just come in here and start screaming at people. Because odds are, people, there's a lot of people that don't respond to that kind of stress or they respond in a negative way. So you're not really winning at that point. You're just wasting your energy, wasting your time, and you're not helping anybody get better. So why come in with a facade and try to be, some I don't even know how to describe it, but be somebody big and mean and scary when you can have so much impact on people's lives by being their friend. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And to that point, do you feel like, I mean, you talk about junior high, everybody's there just running around, high school, whatnot, to college. I think a lot of perception is if you're a college coach, you know everything, you've been properly trained, you evaluate players the right way, athletes the right way. But do you think that that is the case, that all these coaches are getting the education, the training that they should have, not only at the collegiate level, but then at some of those sub levels as well?
I don't think that everybody is or every coach is properly trained. No. I do think that people do their best to be the best at their position, and whatever the case may be, whether that's I was a coach or I was an athlete in high school, and so I know this, and that, which is great. Um, or it's a college coach who's been in it for 30 plus years. I mean, with that being said, there's always something that you can learn, right? And I think that regardless of the lack of experience as far as years go, or or having full experience like that, like someone who has 30 years, I think that we can never be stuck in oh, I know everything. I know all there is to know about it. I've been in it. I've seen it all, that kind of thing. I think that having either side is a closed mindset, and there's always going to be a new opportunity for you to grow and develop as a coach, whether that is physically, mentally, working with people socially, emotionally, that kind of, there's so many things that come into play, right? And you're not going to always see and experience everything regardless of what you say. So I think as long as you're doing your best to learn and to make changes as you see fit and not be stuck on, well, it's done like this by the book, so I'm going to do it like that. I think that's a better a healthier perspective to attack it, because I'm not trying to say that you have to have world-class coaching education to be a successful coach, because that's not true. You can be someone who competed in high school and knows about it and can come in here and do the best you can and take the classes and do all that kind of stuff, and you can be the best person. In fact, I would rather have someone who puts in so much time to become better than what they were the previous year or whatever, than someone who comes in and says, I know everything because I've been involved in it for so many years. I don't care. I want to see how you
Yeah.
are as a person, how you're going to adapt and change with me, that kind of thing.
And you bring up a good point here. Coaches do have a massive impact, which I completely agree with. And I think the impact that a coach can have is undersold and underutilized in a lot of places, especially at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
So, for your thoughts, because I also know you did help out at the high school level a little bit as well, what would you like to see, or what do you think is the change that needs to be made, maybe just in Utah, to your point, but what needs to be changed or addressed to help these coaches be better coaches and to be able to make that impact that you're talking about?
I do think that one of the biggest changes that could happen, and I mean, there's a lot of logistical things that have to go into all that. I do think that we could develop some sort of, I don't want to call it training program, but some sort of training program that allows you to at least get the basics of the sport and understand, how to coach this and that kind of thing. But then also, with that same note, there's a place on that platform or whatever where people can go to for resources, like reach out to an expert or have questions. Let's chat here, or here's some really great books. Here's some coaching books that, top industry leaders love, that kind of thing. I think mostly it comes down to a place where everybody can find a lot of information, like a database almost, that kind of thing. And I know that there's like USATF, their website and all that kind of stuff, but I don't feel like that there's it's not catered to maybe like beginner coaches or people that are kind of intermediary kind of thing, intermediate, whatever the word is. um, but something like that, I feel like would help a lot of people, just because people might want to be a coach, but they just don't know where to begin with all that kind of stuff. So maybe if it's like a step-by-step process that allows people to grow, and maybe it's like a partnership with each of the counties where some of the county professionals can come in and, oh, this is what I've done for 10 years. Like maybe you can learn a couple things here, or we can, collaborate, that kind of thing. I think that's a Utah thing that would be very helpful for sure, because there isn't, besides the track clubs, that kind of stuff, there isn't a lot of professional experience, I guess, when it comes to that regard. But maybe if there was something that was similar to that, that would allow these beginner and intermediate coaches to have an outlet to go to kind of find those things that they need, those resources, maybe that would be helpful. I don't know.
No, I think you bring up a good point, and that's what I was kind of hitting on is I think it's difficult for a lot of these younger coaches to get started because there's not that resource of where to go. Like if I'm just a dad and I want to go and start teaching my kids track, or I want to go coach some club track team or go help out at high school, like where do I find the resources if it's something that I personally haven't done?
Mm-hmm.
And how
Mm-hmm.
do I be better, even if it is, maybe it's just a high school athlete they ran. How do you go above and beyond the coaches that you were around? Because otherwise it's just a similar cycle continuously. You're just going through the
Yeah.
same practices, same routines. And to your point, if it wasn't great then, what's gonna make the shift? What's gonna help
Yeah.
those athletes change? So I think
Yeah.
you hit it on the nail. There isn't enough professional development for, especially in Utah, it sounds like,
Yeah.
for those
And for the
coaches,
athletes too.
because and I think it's a sport that's underviewed, and
Mm-hmm.
it needs more viewers and more encouragement, more people backing it to get some of those sources like football has, where our
Mm-hmm.
coaches are getting together, are collaborating, talking. I haven't heard
Yeah.
of many track coaches that meet up, get together, and say, "Hey, this is how I'm structuring my sprint workouts. This is how we work with our hurdlers. This is some of the recovery technique that
Yeah.
we're
And
doing."
with that being said, I do feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping in the industry for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it has to be collaborative. You have to work together, that kind of stuff. But there is a lot of gatekeeping, and I don't know why it's like we get so protective over the things that we create, that kind of thing. I'm
Yeah.
like, I've always led with when I did work with high school kids a lot, I was always like, oh, here, sure, take the program. I don't care. Take it. You know what I mean? Because I'd rather have somebody have something to start from and then they can expand on that and grow from there than just to be like, well, it's going to be $40 for that. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather have people be open to working collaboratively than just being like, well, I don't know, you're going to have to pay for my master class so I can teach you everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wh-
I don't know.
which I get. I mean, you're doing training or stuff. We're not knocking on that. I know what Tawnie's saying here. And there does seem to be like, this is my secret sauce. This is how I've done it with my athletes, and I'm not willing to share that. But the idea is innovation comes when we do share those things, and better things come from it.
Mm-hmm.
To your point,
Mm-hmm.
it's like oh man, I'm going to forget the name now. Uh, but think about the high jump, for example, and how that's changed throughout the years. And then we have I'm going to say this wrong, the Fosbury flop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And before that, everybody's going over forward. But as things change, they see a different technique. It's like, oh, how do you coach that? How do you go about that? Now that's the only way anyone does it. Granted, there was changes. You're not jumping into sand, and now you have a soft mat to land on.
Right,
But
right.
it's the same thing. Innovation comes when you see that it's performed in the game, but also some of the things that go into it in training, and
Mm-hmm.
that helps the sport grow. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that is definitely something that you want to have out there.
Mm-hmm.
So. Well, I appreciate you, Tawnie. I do want to throw out some really funny stories because, like I said, I've been around Tawnie, and back in high school, I think one of the coolest things I ever saw from Tawnie is she had some gnarly scars on the
Oh
inside of
yeah.
her thigh. And one of the most epic things, she hurdled, I'd like to say she hurdled inverted or reverse in a sense, and she spiked herself going over the hurdle. She literally gouged her leg with her
Yeah.
spikes.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy look when you see this girl show up to practice, bleeding, whatnot. That was epic. And the other thing is how she would pound into her starting blocks was
Oh man.
fantastic. Was that
Uh,
something you kept going in college? I don't
yeah.
think so.
Yes, it was, of course, because 100,000% intensity all the time from me, intimidation
Oh,
factor. You know what I mean?
I mean, the way
uh,
she got set into these blocks was like someone banging on your front door at like 2 a.m. type
Quite
of
literally.
getting startled. I mean, I'm pretty sure she
Uh,
even moved the blocks. Like you don't want your blocks to move. You set them like that's where you want them, and I'm pretty sure they'd move because she'd
they
hit it
probably
so
did.
hard.
They probably did. Jeez. I know. It's just one of those things that you just carry on with you because then it's like your signature move kind of thing. So, oh gosh.
That I love that, and that's something that not many people know. So I wanted to see it, unless you saw her ever compete, because that was fantastic. I love that. But to your point, Tawnie did dance as a young age, not great at it. Falls over a hurdle in junior high, spikes herself in high school in some of the first meets that we're running. Yet she keeps coming back for more. That's her personality. She keeps coming back for more, competes, finds her way to college. She's now in the coaching ranks. And I think it just goes to show that determination factor that sports really did give you, not
Mm-hmm.
quitting, not giving up. And so that really is my last thing I want to ask you is what lasting impression do you want to give on the listeners? What's one thing that you want to say to somebody that might be in your shoes right now in junior high, high school, college? Like, what would you tell them?
There's a few things for sure. I think the biggest thing is to never stop because there's so many opportunities out there. And if you let those little things, like, for example, the spiking of the leg or the falling over the hurdle, if you let those things interfere with you wanting to continue moving forward, chasing after a dream that you have, then you'll never realize those dreams, right? Like I was saying earlier, when I was in junior high, high school, I never ever dreamed that I would be, running professionally or running at the trials, those kinds of things. But like, you just never know what opportunities are around the corner. So my biggest piece of advice is to never stop going after those dreams, no matter how big they are, no matter how, from the teeny tiny little, seed all the way up to the big stage. Like, make sure that you dedicate yourself to pursuing that dream, no matter what it takes, no matter how many times you have to change it, because it's always changing, right? Like, I mean, even today, I'm still in this kind of area where I'm like, maybe I want to compete, maybe not. And I'm just kind of ebbing and flowing with that. And I think that that's how you have to be. You can't just be so like streamlined with it has to look like this in order for success to happen. There's so many ways that success can happen. So just be able to adapt to that kind of stuff and make it happen by moving, ebbing and flowing with the way that the world works, that kind of thing. And then on that note too, I think that the biggest thing as well is to pursue your dreams passionately and be bold about it too. I think there was a lot of times in my career as a young athlete, a young female athlete, where I was overlooked because I was female. Um, wasn't the strongest like athlete in the state, whatever it was, that kind of thing, just overlooked because of this, and this, X, Y, and Z. You can be female, you can be male, you can be whatever you want to be and still pursue those dreams, regardless if you come from a big city or a small town country, which is where I'm from. You can make those big things happen, and you just have to pursue it fiercely and passionately and go forth with it, and don't be afraid. That's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid.
Love it. I love it. And I should point out one note for one additional thing, Tawnie, because you are a female athlete. I mean, you definitely took a different path than a lot of male athletes are going to take. You've experienced different things. Is there anything specifically you'd like to pinpoint to those female athletes out there? Maybe things you've experienced, hardships, whatnot. But is there any lasting impressions or advice you'd like to give the female athlete in particular?
Yeah, definitely kind of just going back to the pursuing it fiercely and passionately. There were times where I kind of had hesitations because I didn't want to look masculine because I was weightlifting and I was intense. I had this, like, society puts us in this box where we have to be feminine and we have to be nice, like soft spoken, and we can't be, we can't speak above our superiors and that kind of stuff. Like, we have to do this, and this. There's this list of rules that we have to follow as females and as female athletes. But I think that that's hogwash. And I don't think that we should keep ourselves in this box that society likes to put us in. So whether that's weightlifting, whether that's being fierce and intense on the track, whether you are outspoken and give your opinion to whoever it is, I think that you need to realize that you are powerful and you have a voice to be heard, and to, again, just be fierce about everything that you do and be passionate, and don't be afraid to be fierce and passionate. There's going to be people who look down on you because of what you say or what you do or what you are, because you're a female and you're doing this, that, and this and that. And I think that you need to just learn to push that away and just blaze forward and keep doing what you do, regardless of what people say and what society tries to put you, model you as. So,
I love that. I love that. I appreciate that, Tawnie, especially for me, being a father of two daughters. Like, I love hearing strong women in athletics being able to talk about their experiences and really encourage the next generation, encourage people. Maybe you're in your professional career right now and you want to go play a rec sport or something, but you're scared, or you want to try weightlifting for the first time, but you're scared of getting man shoulders, the dumb stereotypes to your point that you're talking about, which genetically isn't even the truth. You grow your
mm-mm.
lower half and males grow the upper. So
Yeah.
it's dumb. But to that point, I appreciate everything that you said, Tawnie. Last shout outs, you got any Instagram handles, Twitter, anything you want to shout out to listeners? Let them follow you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and I try to share my day-to-day life. I'm a lot on there a lot more during the season with coaching and everything, but it's Go the Distance. Kind of a funky spelling. I'll have to send it to Cooper. He could put it in the notes of the show or something. But it's go dot underscore the dot distance. So I'd love for you to follow, and let's be friends and let's make this community even bigger, because we all need to support each other, especially in the way that the world is now. Support and love and showing, community is really important. And I think we all have to stick together as athletes, regardless of our industry. So,
Love
yep.
it. Love it. I appreciate it so much, Tawnie. Give her a follow. She's great, positive influence. She can share a lot more than she even shared here. today with you and help you out with maybe even some personal struggles or anything that you guys are going through. So follow
Yeah.
her. But appreciate you guys. Remember, stay the journey, stay the course, and live Sojo.
Thank you.